Welcome to MVP, our new podcast for anyone that loves to learn new things. I'm Kate.
And I'm Jack, and we both work at an online school, MVA.
Like most educators, we are passionate about sharing knowledge.
And love the sound of our own voices.
Each week, we'll invite a special guest to join us for fun and engaging discussions on a wide range of topics, from careers advice to social issues.
So sit back, relax, and let's get into it.
So I guess for people that are wondering what we're doing, we are setting up a podcast, and I will say it's going to be an award-winning podcast because I'm manifesting that. That's for anyone really. We're going to be talking about lots of different things. What are some of the things do you think we'll cover over the next few weeks, months?
Well, certainly interesting stories that people might not have heard of before, from worlds of history, worlds of science, worlds of literature, school tips and tricks and techniques for students, perhaps even a few for teachers and parents as well.
Okay, so today's our first podcast, and we will normally have a special guest, so we're already letting people down. But with it being our first podcast, we want to tap into our own knowledge, maybe have you, the listener, get to know us a little bit. But we're also going to have a real focus on revision, because as I used to be a teacher, Jack, you still are a teacher, and we know that exam time is a horrible time. It's not too far away, and we just want to, share some knowledge, share some expertise.
I've done a lot of horrible exam revision in my past, techniques that I would never recommend to any of my students now. So it's kind of words of warning.
I don't think I've ever been as stressed as the run up to my GCSEs. What were you like?
I was exactly the same, just very, very panicky, thinking these are the first proper exams I've ever done. Previously, I had been okay in school exams, but never really tried my best. But I knew going into these GCSE exams, I wanted to give them my best possible effort, and so I was quite hard on myself, really. I mean, we could talk a bit about some of my revision techniques perhaps later on in the podcast, but I was really, really cruel and unkind to myself, putting myself through sort of army style regimented, wake up at this time, do this, and don't get distracted.
Friends like that. Yeah. Well, one of my friends used to set her alarm for 4 a.m, and she'd do 3 hours of revision before she even left for the school bus. I mean, I hated people like that when I was at school because it just made me feel completely inadequate.
Yeah. Well, as one of those people, what I actually found by doing that was it doesn't work because you're so tired and exhausted. Perhaps you're reading a page, you're watching a video, you're not taking anything in, you're not remembering anything using that method.
Now, Jack, were you one of these awful people that asked for extra paper? Because that was a surefire way to have me despise you if you're in the exam being like, I need the extra booklet. And I'm like, what? I'm halfway through my first page.
I was also terrified by that. But thankfully, although I wrote quite a lot, my handwriting was also awful. So it kind of was all bunched up. Horrible to I can't imagine the horror on the examiner's face when they got my English language paper.
Oh, I know. I dread to think. I'm actually somebody, I'm quite lucky. I do well in exams. I'm better at exams than I am coursework. I think it's because until my 30s, I was quite a disorganised person. So exams are a bit better because you can just come and either perform or not perform. But I say I wasn't organised, but I mean, I did a lot of revision. And when I think back now, there's nothing I've worked so hard towards than my GCSEs. I certainly went out the window when I was doing my A-levels, to my parents' horror. But was your kind of strategy just write note after note after note and highlight everything on the page?
It was basically, I'd buy the textbook and then I would copy it out by hand again and again and again. It was like how they used to recreate the Bible.
You're a monk.
I was a little revision monk in my room, just writing out the textbook again and again and again. Eventually, I sort of then would go down to flashcards, and that'd be great. I'm
nice.
Flashcards now, a bit of a treat. I only have to write a couple of sentences instead of 4 pages.
I know most
yeah.
of our listeners can't see this, but I have this, whenever I talk about mentalness with exams, I know I'm talking about my friend Olivia, right? And we're still very good friends, so I feel like I can get away with slagging her off. But she was one of these people who got like the awful bump on her finger from like the scribbling just quite so much.
No.
Yeah, like I think it's probably still there today. No, I was not a writer. I didn't write lots and lots of things. I was well, I've got two ways of revising. One is less humiliating than the other. So the first was I was a posters girl. So you kind of came into my bedroom and it looked like, this is a very dated reference, so nobody listening to this will get this, but it looked like A Beautiful Mind.
Nice.
Have you know, like the images, the diagrams, all on the wall. I used to nick so much A3 paper from art, and then they were just on my wall. And I think it worked. I think that kind of thing does work for visual learners, but it's not great for your mental health when like your safe space is just like a dedicated mural to learning. Yeah. But my other, which is a bit more embarrassing, but it probably actually says a lot. And now when I reflect on my career over the last, 10 years, I loved the sound of my own voice, always have. Anyone listening to this podcast has probably already realised that. So first of all, I would do the dictaphone, which would now be known as voice notes, showing my age. So definitely did that and played it back. And I still recommend that. When we talk later about strategies, I'll go into more detail. But the really embarrassing thing was I had a fake game show called Revise Wise, where I was the host. And every day in my living room, I would have a fake game show where I'd be asking fake audience members questions. And then I was also then the audience member answering. And then when I got into sixth form, I don't know how I wasn't destroyed, but I would do this in the common room. And I ran a game show called Revise Wise in my sixth form common room, and would, have like, 10 people participating, and I'd have my quiz and I'd be like, Annie, over to you. And then Annie would have to answer about enzymes, and so embarrassing.
Well, you say that. Look, first of all, let's dissect it a little bit. As a host, were you Anton Deck? Were you Vernon Kay?
I was Weakest Link.
Oh, Anne Robinson. Oh,
yeah.
Very, very
loved
cool
it.
Hostess. Yeah.
Yeah, loved the power. Yeah, I'm surprised I wasn't more tormented at school when I was doing things like that.
Oh, yeah.
All of my friends, that have gone on to do wonderful things in their lives, they all owe that in some small part to Kate Meeks and the incredible Revise Wise show.
Oh yeah, they have a strong fear of Anne Robinson though. Whenever it brings them like war flashbacks to revision times and exams. But apart from that, they've got great grades.
This is such a tangent, but they go through so much on the Weakest Link to really not win an awful lot of money. I always found that.
Oh yeah. And there's people who are there along for the ride where they're just banking. They have no confidence in their own. Yeah,
Bank.
Yeah, in their own answer. They don't even hear.
What's
the
your name?
question.
Bank.
Yeah. Exactly. No confidence in their own ability whatsoever. Get them out straight away.
So, were there any sort of standout things from your own schooling that you would say, yes, this worked really well, no, this was a nightmare? You've alluded to it a little bit, but...
Yeah, so linking back to your posters, I was also a poster guy. I had posters around my room, partially because I had all these notes that I was just storing up and had to put somewhere, really. But then one thing that worked quite well from that was wherever I brushed my teeth, I'd have a little flashcard of just something I was finding really, really tricky to remember. So whether that's chemistry formulas, physics formulas, key quotes in English as well. When I'm brushing my teeth, I can just repeat them to myself again and again and again. And I'm there anyway, so I may as well learn something at that point as well. I was going to say something that didn't work quite so well was I never really got on with French GCSE. There's a speaking element, and I didn't pick it up very well, surprisingly, throughout the whole 2 years. And then
French oral's tough.
Yeah, when you get to the speaking element and you need to come up with a couple of pages worth of stuff on your family holiday or what you know about yourself. I didn't know any real French words, so I do it based off of the sound. So I just remember what a sentence sounded like, and remember it almost like a song. So I created this song, not knowing what anything means that I'm saying, not knowing if the pronunciation is correct.
Just memorising it.
But memorising it. And then so I go into this speaking exam and I'm practically singing this song to the teacher, who, I remember this vividly, is absolutely wetting herself. And you would laugh, wouldn't you? But the amount that throws you off.
Yeah, that is not a confidence booster.
No, not at all. So I didn't take French on the A level.
Honestly, French orals, they are still the bar that I have with my close friends about how nervous you are about something. So I remember vividly my best friend when she got married, and she, like, we were waiting to go into the car and I was like, "You all right?" She was like, "I'm really nervous." She was like, it's worse than the French oral. And I was like, oh, wow, you must be nervous.
Yeah.
If it's worse than French oral, that's it.
You've got French oral, and then right at the top, you've got Revise Wise with Anne Robinson as well. So
yeah, exactly.
Nothing's been worse than that so far, though. So I think
I've lived a charmed life.
Yes.
So I think we should probably start being helpful. So we've there's so many things, and I'm sure teachers all over the country will agree or disagree, and definitely different things work well for different people. I would say that's one of the first things to figure out, is actually what works for you, because it might be that when you're revising with friends or with siblings, or even your parents might tell you this is what you should be doing, and actually there are so many different ways of learning, and I don't mean that you need to be doing a cartwheel whilst reciting the line from the poem, but there are different things that you can use, and it's really useful to identify early as possible how you enjoy revising, because if you've got a lot of revision to do, and let's face it, we have a very content heavy curriculum in this country. So we're obviously recording this in England, and our exams have quite a lot of material that you've got to learn. There's skill stuff as well, but lots of it is lots of learning, and that's kind of really training your memory. So if you're going to be sitting down and doing heaps and heaps of revision over weeks or months or however long that is, it's good to do something that you can at least tolerate and cope with, and actually helps you sink in. So try and identify, if you are that person who wants to record on your phone you reading through your answers, if you're somebody that wants to type out notes or mind map, kind of identify that as early as possible, and then and then you don't agonize too much time on doing something that's just not helped.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why we get you to do mock exams as teachers. So it gives you the chance to try out different things and then say that definitely doesn't work. And if you've got a brain, and like I didn't have, you'd stop doing that thing rather than continuing to write out the whole textbooks. But eventually I sort of switched on to flashcards, and it wasn't quite as successful as Revise Wise, but did create my own little game in my head as to reading through the flashcard, kind of having a question on the front, the answer on the back, and if I got it right, I'd put it in a pile of my right answers. Wrong answers,
I like that.
wrong pile. And then you go back and do the wrong answered cards, and so it's something you can do anywhere as well. So
100% quizzing in some capacity is one of the best ways to have something cement in your brain. And there's loads of tools out there. You can make your own quizzes. You could make your own quizzes exactly like that with flashcards. Maybe you make your own Kahoot quiz and you have other people join in and try and get it, or you have them make quizzes and you answer. But quizzing is a really good way to move something from your short-term memory into your long-term memory, because after a while it just becomes second nature. And there's something called cognitive load theory. I'm going to sound really fancy here now. And what that basically means is, where you have your long-term memory, which is your hard drive, that's stuff that you don't really need to think about. So your PIN code, your birthday, you're not thinking every single time, oh gosh, is it January? Is it? These are things that become really, really natural to you. And then you have your working memory, which is things that you're keeping in your mind right now. And what you want to try and do is you want to try and free up space. So move things from your working memory into your long-term memory, and then you've got more space. So by the time you're coming to exams, there's some things that are just feel really second nature. And you can do that through things like repetition and practicing and quizzing and answering. So if you've got something like, for English, a really good way of doing that is having some quotes that you have memorized that then you know that you can adapt into lots of different situations and talk about, whether that's a text or a poem or a play, whatever it is. Having a few of those that are in like your long-term memory, and even now, like I can still remember some of those bits and pieces from school because I'd drummed them in, and then when you go into the exam, you've freed up that ability to be able to actually think and learn, and you're not just spending that whole time being like, fair is foul and foul is what? You know, you're actually just ploughing straight on and jumping to it.
Yeah. It sort of links into something that I used to do as well, but only towards the back end of my examination career, if you want to call it that, where there's a technique that a lot of people use, which is to plan a journey from one point that you know, so maybe your kitchen, to another point that you know, maybe your front drive. And along that journey, put in little bits of pieces of revision, little facts, and then literally walk that journey and kind of say those facts out loud to yourself to associate them with that journey that you can then go into the exam and visualize that journey. So eutrophication is what I recently told a student. That's a process in biology where there's lots of different steps. But
I don't know anything about this, so
well, I can take you through their journey. So it's starting in their kitchen. Their kitchen has a toilet near it, so to remind them that fertilizer is running into a lake, a river, a pond, or a stream, they've got that starting off towards the toilet end of their kitchen. And as they head out into their kitchen, they're going past the taps, which are the water element of that. So piecing that together and getting them started, they then go down their corridor and they then see the effect that this fertilizer is having, because their corridor might have plants in it, for example, where we're getting lots of plant growth. And it goes on and on and on like that as they travel through this journey and make those associations. So when they are in the exam, they see the word eutrophication and they think, oh, I've got that journey stored and I can remember each step. I went one step further than that in some exams where my journey was between the things I have and know I'll have on my exam desk. So my pen to my calculator is a bit nerdy, but at least you can then, if you find it more difficult to visualise a journey in your head, perhaps, you've got it in front of you. You've got a pen, you've got your calculator, you've got your paper, you've got the person in front of you, and you can link those two things together and remember that as the journey. So
have you ever done, it's really similar to that, so I've never done that journey one, although I have heard of it, but Memory Palace was like all the rage when I was not when I was at school, but when I was teaching. We did like an inset day where we learned about that, and I always found that really, really interesting, and actually did it with some workshops with various different people over the last few years, and that is incredible how that works. So for people that don't know, a memory palace is essentially creating a palace in your mind, and in different rooms. It doesn't need to be a palace, it can be a house, it can be a football stadium, it can be anything that's got different areas, and then you store things in those areas that you associate. So it's all to do with this association. So it's really similar concept, Jack, isn't it? It's like you associate a certain thing with something else, and then it's easier to remember those things. So we did it, this memory palace. We used to do it with, I don't know if it's still the case, but you used to have to remember the first 20 elements in the periodic table. Is that still true?
You get given the periodic table, so you don't have to remember them off by heart now, thankfully.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we used to have to. Cruel times. But you would basically have, for each of the elements, you would have something that you could visualize. So like hydrogen was like a fire hydrant, helium was a balloon, lithium was a battery, beryllium was a strawberry because berry. And then you basically have that you've gone into this room and you've arrived at a place and you've seen this fire hydrant in the parking lot, and this little girl lets go of her balloon and is crying, and all of those things. It's much easier to remember that story than it is remembering hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium. You know, obviously I don't remember that many because I've only got 4. But that can be a really interesting thing to do, particularly if you're starting your revision, you're getting really ahead of things, and there are some things that are you're just really struggling to get right. Like I also love, I can't remember what they're called. What's it called when you've got like a chant or like a phrase? Is it like a mnemonic or something?
Oh yeah, you can have a mnemonic.
Like Richard of York gave battle in vain, or like my very exceptional memory just stored up 9 planets. Like I can't believe it when people don't know the planets and they don't know the order from the sun, because I'm just like, well, my very exceptional memory just stored up 9 planets.
Well, so that's completely ruined now because Pluto's not a planet, isn't it? So my
stupid Pluto.
Yeah, my exceptional memory just stored up 9.
Just stored up 9.
That's why they don't know that it's planets. It could be anything.
But you just do that thing and then you just remove Pluto. Okay, guys, that's just the rule. So still use that. Just forget about Pluto, because silly little thing, literally silly little thing. Nightmare. I hate it when things have been like debunked or ruined, or like I've learned. I think I might have even spoken to you about this, but I got really upset when I learnt the truth about electrons. They didn't move in the same way that I was taught at GCSE. I felt completely betrayed by Mrs. Stewart, my science teacher.
A lot of GCSE chemistry turns out to be lies. You know, when we look at the periodic table, we tell you certain things, that's a lie. When we look at electron shells, that's a lie. Sorry.
You've been lied to, kids.
We have to. It makes it that little bit easier in GCSE, but then it is a bit of a shock at A level.
Yeah, it's just a betrayal of trust.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what are some other helpful advice that we might give to somebody who's coming up to an exam time, and maybe they're doing exams for the first time, maybe they're doing their mock exams at the end of this year, and they want to get in a good headspace?
Yeah, so for those doing mock exams, the first thing I'd say is to try out plenty of different things. Find out what works for you and what doesn't. For those doing the real thing, don't fall into the usual traps, some of them we've spoken about today, but try and make sure that your revision is active revision, in that you're doing something and you're playing a part in it, rather than perhaps just pressing play on a video and trying to take that in. You will learn some things, you get some useful explanations, but unless you're then going after the video and trying out some questions and putting it into practice, it can go through one ear and out the other sometimes. I think
the best way is basically you need to be able to recreate what you've learned to demonstrate that you've learned it, and that's something that happens with all of us. So if you can recreate a page in a textbook into a mind map, you've had to have thought through and understood it to be able to do that recreation. If you've recreated a mind map into cue cards, it's this recreation process that is you learning and thinking and developing, and the same with lots of different things. It's like why it's so good to do lots of exam practice and past papers is because things might come up in ways that you're not used to seeing, and getting as much exposure to that as well is really, really useful.
And it doesn't have to be sort of sitting there and doing the exam all the way through. It could be that you do a couple of questions, or you instead of sitting and writing it down, you just read the question, think in your head about what you'd answer, what the key bullet points are, and then look at the mark scheme straight after to see how many of those you got. It doesn't have to be sitting exam after exam after exam. In
exam conditions, it might be that you use an exam question and you discuss it with your friend or your sibling or somebody. How would we answer this? So you can use things in a different way than what they were originally intended. I also think it's really important, and to sort of stop people getting overwhelmed, is to have a proper plan, and that plan isn't just about doing as much as humanly possible in as much time possible. That plan can also incorporate time off, days off, days doing things differently, you know, piecing, maybe you do want to do one practice paper a week or something like that, but you want to make sure that you're planning for different things, so you're not just always doing the same thing over and over, because it'll stop working, it will stop making sense. And having a good plan, having a good revision timetable, I think is a really good way, because it will feel huge, and there is a lot to learn, but don't forget that you have been learning it and that you will know more than you think. It feels like a huge amount when you look at the list of topics and you think, oh my word, that's 1,000 topics across all my subjects. But actually you know, like, you know, 60% of all, you know, of all of them. It's just those little things that you know, but having a good plan in place, a good revision timetable, and you don't need to throw it out the window if it doesn't work on Tuesday. You know, these things can be very fluid and change and adapt.
Yeah. A key thing as well is that students all the time get worried for exams, but actually come out of them saying that was way better than I thought it was going to be. Because as humans, we always think of what the worst case scenario is, which in an exam context is going into the exam not knowing a single question. Of course, that's never going to happen. If you've done the revision, if you've, you know, been studying for your GCSEs over the last 2 years, your A-levels over the last 2 years, whatever exams it is, you've been learning things. There are things in your memory there.
Yeah. There are things there. And I think as well, it's so easy to become consumed by this narrative, which, you know, kind of rightly or wrongly, you know, of course exams are important. Of course everyone wants you to do well. Everyone wants the best for you, really. That's what your teachers want. That's what your parents and guardians want. That's what your friends and family want. That's what you want. But all of that sometimes can feel like really negative pressure. And it's also really important to know that it's okay, even if you go into an exam and you write nothing, coming from somebody who got U's in a fair few modules over the years. It's actually okay. It's actually, you will still survive. It's not the be all and end all. That does not define your life. And of course, doing well is great because it feels really nice to do well. But everyone also makes mistakes and also does things. Everyone has off days. Every single person has an off day. I stressed myself out so much with my GCSEs, and I really felt, even though I don't think my parents ever intended to make me feel like that, but I loved them so much that I felt like I really, really wanted to do well because I wanted them to be really proud of me. And at no point had they said, like, we're not going to be proud of you unless you do really well. But that's something that you feel, isn't it? You feel like, I want to deliver for them. And all they're thinking is, we want her to deliver for herself. And actually, you're working yourself up. And it's all anyone, you know, really wants is what's best for you, even if sometimes that's not communicated in the right way. Like, parents aren't perfect either. Teachers aren't perfect. You know, I'm sure I put a fair amount of, like, undue stress and pressure on my students over the years, and that's because I wanted them to have that amazing feeling on results day, but it's not at any cost. And I think I think that's really important, to just try and stay grounded and keep your foot in the reality of the fact that this is a piece of paper.
Jeremy Clarkson, love him or hate him, Jeremy Clarkson says an amazing thing every year, where he failed all of his A-level exams and, you know, has a Lamborghini or has millions and millions of pounds, has a massive house and all those sorts of things. So it's not a true barometer as to whether someone will be successful. It can help, but it's... of
course it can help, and you want to give yourself as many positive, you know, as many positive opportunities as possible, and doing well academically is one of those ways. But I think actually the way that society's changed in the last kind of 50 years, you know, 20 years, even the last 5, is that people can make a success for themselves without the traditional channels. And it's not just a case, like you see, you know, YouTubers that are, you know, huge success stories with, you know, where this is a self-made thing. You see that's the same with, you know, influencers as a an option now for running your own business and running your own brand. These are all things that have only happened in the last sort of 5-10 years, and I think I think you can demonstrate and you can get credibility and you can get experience and be successful, you know, in lots and lots of ways without doing well in your exams. But of course, try your best, guys.
Yeah, and if in doubt, start a podcast.
In doubt, start a podcast. You never know, you might be a huge success.
Yes.
One of the last things that we'll do on this kind of helpful, I mean, I'm using sort of air quotes there, helpful section about exam revision, is I did a little bit of digging just for some like useful websites and things like that. So obviously BBC Bite Size, if you're, you know, using a UK curriculum, there's so many interactive notes and things on there. There's Seneca, which do your students use Seneca, Jack?
We do. We use it at the school for schoolwork throughout the year, and of course for revision. It's a great little site because it allows you to learn the content and then tests you on it pretty much instantly afterwards. So it's like we were saying earlier, there's bite-sized chunks of tests, there's quick activities that are taking things from your short-term memory into your long-term memory.
Yeah. Tutor to You is another one, and I actually used to use them when I was at school, just for really nice succinct notes and good materials that have been made by teachers. There's Go Conquer, which has you can make flashcards and mind maps and things like that. Have you got any others, Jack, that you would recommend? For
maths and science in particular, there's a couple that I absolutely love. So the first one is Save My Exams. I think it's .co.uk, but that has some really, really simple and easy to read notes on every single subject. So if you're, you know, trawling through your textbook and thinking, I can't be bothered to read all of that page, can I just have the key bullet points that are to do with that topic? Save My Exams has them. Another one, particularly for maths, is called corbettmaths.com, where they have a page that has every single maths topic on it as a video, as practice questions, and then as exam style questions as well. So you can think, I'm really, really rubbish at trigonometry. Where can I go to practice that? corbettmaths.com has everything you might need.
Great. Oh, that sounds really good. I didn't know that one. But yeah, there's lots of great resources out there, and you know, you don't, of course, like you've got your kind of classic traditional CGP revision guides, which obviously I've got to give a shout out to them. They are great. So for the next part of the podcast, we're trying out a few features. Obviously, this is the first episode, so they may well tank. We're going to do. We're going to do 2 truths and a lie, but I forgot what the clever robot came up with. So we've been
the
using
amazing title.
Yeah, Chat GPT to come up with some titles for our features. And Jack, what was the title for this one?
Do you mean Teacher Liar Pants on Fire?
That's it. That's the one. Teacher Liar Pants on Fire. So I'm going to read out 3 headlines. And sorry, Jack, I know we'd said ahead of time that they were all going to be connected on the same subject. That just hasn't worked out.
Okay,
and
fine.
I don't think it will. So I'm going to read out 3 headlines, and 2 of them are truthful and 1 of them is not truthful. 1 of them is a lie, and you need to tell me after I've read out all 3 which one you think is the lie.
Okay.
So we will see how this goes. So the first one. Diver swallowed and spat out by humpback whale.
Okay.
The second one. US jets shoot down giant Valentine's balloon display, believing it Chinese probe.
Topical. And
the third one. Patient develops Irish accent after cancer diagnosis.
Ooh, okay. So I'll kind of go through them in order. So the bloke being spat out by a humpback whale. Mm-hmm. That does sound something like your dad's old weird mate would kind of come to you and say, "Oh, the other day
there was a guy at the pub."
Yeah, just sat in the corner. That's old Bill. He was spat out by a humpback whale.
And Bill doesn't speak. He's never spoken since.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm thinking that might be the lie, but I'll come back to it. The second one was the balloons, the Valentine's Day balloons. Okay, so I think that is something that could have happened. It does sound very, very funny. It sounds very, very topical because obviously it's recently Valentine's Day, and there's been the whole business with shooting down balloons, but that might also lead me into thinking it's a lie. So again, I'll come back to that one. It's probably it's one of the most brutal things to do, because I'd imagine they'd have shot it down with some big fighter jet missile. It's not the hopeful message that you want to be sending out on Valentine's Day.
No, it doesn't scream romance, does it?
No. And then the last one was someone went into a coma and woke up with an Irish accent. Was that?
Patient develops Irish accent after cancer diagnosis.
Cancer diagnosis. Okay. So not even going into a coma, just they've been told you've got cancer. Oh, no.
No, I don't. I don't want to believe it for myself. I can't possibly.
Oh, jeepers.
Oh gosh, I feel like we might get some. I mean, nobody is obviously listening to this podcast yet, but
yes.
when we're an international success, we might have some Irish fans who are gonna, be very cross about that crucifixion of their.
My grandma is fully Irish family, so I'll get a strongly worded letter.
Oh,
from
is
her.
she now? Oh, right,
Yeah.
yes. Right, what are you going to go with then, Jack?
I think that they all sound made up. So you've done really, really well here to pick three. That I'm going to say. That the lie is the second one, the Valentine's Day balloons being shot down. Is that the lie?
You are correct.
Yes, 1 for 1. I'm going to try and keep this streak going. So that means that the other two must be true then.
So the other two are true. So a diver in Cape Cod was swallowed and then spat out by a humpback whale.
Wow.
So yeah, I'll link these stories in so that you can get a read of them. And a patient did develop an Irish accent after a cancer diagnosis. So we hope that patient is well.
We do.
We hope they get better. I'm not sure how old these headlines are. I'm obviously putting loads of effort and didn't rush it at all at the last minute.
No due diligence here with.
No, I've not fact checked any of these.
Yeah, it could have been someone related to me. You could have really upset me. I could have stormed out of the podcast because my uncle, who is a diver that got swallowed by a humpback whale, had a cancer diagnosis, now is Irish,
and they were your balloons that got shot down.
Yeah, that could have. Yeah, my fictional balloons that got shut down. That could have ended the podcast there. But
ended our relationship. That's it. I'm sacked. Well done. I'm well done to both of us, because I feel like they were good questions.
They were very good questions.
You were very good at getting them right. So I've given myself a pat on the back as well. There's two more things that we want to do on the podcast, and we've got the classroom confessional. So this is where listeners write into us, and it's almost like an agony aunt style thing. And Jack and I will do our best. We'll keep everyone anonymous, and we'll do our very best to kind of answer your queries. If you've got things that you're going through, struggling with, or you want advice on, this is the feature for you.
Yes, so this one conveniently is revision based, thinking about upcoming mock exams that they have. The student has. They said that they just are really, really struggling to motivate themselves. They'd sit down at their desk and just stare at the wall, or get started for a few minutes and then not be able to continue, or just find a distraction. Any distraction will do, and then go and do that instead. And they said that they've just been really, really struggling with this over the last few weeks. So do we have any advice for how they can get over that hump and actually properly start their revision?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I've had a bit more prep knowing the question beforehand, so I can think about this. One thing that I thought, and I had similar problems before, and I think as humans we have issues like this with not just revision, but when we need to work or focus on something in particular. It's definitely across the board.
Princess procrastination, 100%.
Yeah, we shouldn't really be saying this on a work podcast, should we? But I do have sometimes, but fallen into that trap. But one thing that I find is really, really helpful for me is particularly when thinking back to when I revised, holding myself accountable with someone else by just mentioning to a friend or a family member, saying, right, I'm going away for an hour. When I come back, I want to be able to explain this to you. And if I can't,
that.
And it's not that I know that person's going to have a go at me, but I'd just be a bit embarrassed to go to them after the hour and go, I haven't done it. It's the same with me with running. That's another thing that in a similar way I kind of put off and procrastinate about. But if I have a thing that I'm aiming for and I've told people that I'm doing, whether that's a marathon, a half marathon, or just a run with friends, I know I need to be prepped for that. And so I've got to put in the training before. In this case, it'd be putting in the revision before the exam. So having something to hold you accountable, I found always helps.
I agree. And I think actually on the same sort of thread is maybe having someone else that's doing it at the same time. So I don't necessarily mean having friends round and you're all in one room kind of revising at the same time, although that might work. But even if you were on like a, phone call or whatever that is, or Google call or Zoom call or whatever, and you're revising with someone at the same time, because you will then be like, okay, look, they're going down doing something. You've also got a bit of company if you want to ask someone a question, or just kind of I think sometimes when you don't want to start something, it's often because you think that what you're starting is overwhelming. So if you tell yourself or set yourself a timer that you're going to do this for 15 minutes, 15 minutes feels like, of course I can do 15 minutes. And then you get the confidence because you've done 15 minutes. You feel a little bit better about yourself. I do the same with exercising, where like I will tell myself I just need to do this for 15 minutes, and by the time I'm 15 minutes in, I'm like, I could go again, I can keep going. So I would set yourself like timers on your phones that are for 10 and 15 minutes, and pick a topic, and this could all be part of your plan that you want to have, like 5 of those that you're doing after school or something, and spend 10-15 minutes on it. And if you're done and you want to be done, that's it, that's all you needed to do. And it's about building the confidence to be like, I can do this, it's manageable. So I think timers is good. I think working with people is good. And
I had it just reminded me of a trick that I used to use when I was in the phase of writing out the entire textbook. I'd buy a bag of like jelly beans, Skittles, something like that, and on the textbook I'd place a jelly bean or a Skittle every few paragraphs. If I was really hungry, maybe every few lines. But it would, once I passed that line, I'd be able to eat that jelly bean. Not with copying out the textbook, but perhaps you could then apply that to something more useful.
Well. And also, I guess like even if you impose your own rewards, as maybe it's something like I'm not going to go on Instagram until I've done 3 practice questions, and so you've kind of got that, there's something I want to do, which is go on Instagram, there's something I've got to do to get to that point, and then the kind of revision becomes a means to an end. And it's like tricking yourself. I do it all the time. So many things where I just almost have to trick myself as if I've got 2 minds going on up here, which I don't know if that's cause for concern, but
Exercise is the one for me where, like we were saying, it's so difficult to get out and go for a run. What I started doing in one of the lockdowns to make me run a bit more was I'd order a takeaway. I'd then make sure I'm far enough away from my house so that I have to get back for the door to answer it. I'd be sprinting home. I've done my best 5k time running just back for a takeaway.
Chasing the Papa John's.
Yeah. It doesn't work for revision as much, but perhaps that could be your reward at the end. You don't want your food to go cold, and you've got to do this revision beforehand. Food's a great motivator.
I like that. That's such a good one. But the same with something else. Like it could be like you've got a program. I mean, people watch everything on demand now. I'm so old. I'm like, your program's starting at 8 o'clock at night, so you need to be done by then. But you get the idea. Have something that's achievable, that's not overwhelming. It's not, you don't need to have read the book, but can you have read 5 pages? Yes, of course you can. Start with that, and then you'll feel good. And it's all about feeling good, because when people are feeling good, you're more motivated, and it's just builds up momentum. So thank you for that. Our last thing is to just talk about our MVPs of the week. Do you have one, Jack?
I do. Well, my MVP of the week is a group of people, football commentators. For a couple of reasons. First reason, planning and doing this podcast has made me realise actually how difficult it is to keep talking and keep thinking on the fly and stay alert the whole time.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they can do it is amazing. My second reason is recently the famous football commentator John Motson, the legend, passed away. And so recently I've been listening back to some of his iconic moments of commentary as well. So it's been fresh in my mind. And the third reason as well is I think they're the new poets in some sort of way. If you take a look at Peter Drury, who commentated on the World Cup final and has commentated on big Champions League games in the past, describing the football team Roma in Roman-style ways, talking about colosseums and other metaphors as well in their commentary.
Honestly, English is everywhere, guys. I know I'm an English teacher, but that descriptive language, all of those, it finds its way into anything.
It is.
No, I like that. That's a good one. So mine, we're going to sound like two football hooligans because mine was Marcus Rashford.
Oh, amazing.
Only because, I saw him play and score 2 goals on the weekend against Leicester, and I'd not been to a game in a really long time, and it was really nice to be at a game and actually have my team win, because that doesn't normally happen. My dad actually banned me for a period going because every time I went to United, they lost, and he thought I was bad luck. So it was great. He scored 2 goals, but also he's just a legend. And first opportunity
Absolutely.
to say, what a guy, from an educational, kind of teacher background, and where I taught, where free school meals was such an important thing, and a huge part of something that we can be proud of as a country, I think, is are some initiatives like that. And seeing a young athlete who really has got the world at his feet, but kind of come and bat for the people and remember his roots. And even though that might be old news now, but him scoring 2 goals just reminded me, you're a great guy,
a legend. He speaks so well as well. Footballers get a lot of rap for sort of being unintelligent or not having political opinions, but the points that he makes, you can't argue against them. They're all very sensible and right.
He articulates himself brilliantly, and one day, Marcus, when you're listening to this, please know that I'm a big fan.
We'll get him on the podcast. He can be one of our guests.
We'll definitely get him on. He'll probably be here next week, guys, so tune in. I've really enjoyed doing this, Jack.
I've loved it.
I don't know what it's going to sound like, but I feel like we did a good job.
This is where we listen back and we sound like tinny robots, and it's absolutely awful. But it's been fun.
It doesn't get past the approval stage. So I guess our last things is really to just remind people, please, if you'd like this, please subscribe to listen. We'll be doing a lot more of these, and please follow us on Instagram. We are MVP Podcast. I probably need to set that up before I tell people what we're called.
We are called that, unless that's already taken. Then we're not called that.
Unless that's already taken, you can check the show notes. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, everyone.